My name is Jeff Harris. I'm your 2025 president of the Maine Association of Realtors, and I'm happy to serve the association as your president. Also, we have Suzanne Guile, the Chief Executive Officer of MAR, who will monitor the Q&A and chat section. So if you have any questions, put it in the chat and we'll take care of them. Maybe as we go, maybe at the end, but we will take care of those. I want to start by saying today's program is Pathways to Home Ownership with MaineHousing, and I'm going to start by introducing our presenters. And the first presenter is Tina Partridge, and homeownership manager. Tina has worked for MaineHousing for over 30 years and has been the mortgage lending manager since January 2018. She held the position of mortgage financial manager in the loan servicing department since 2008. And prior to that, had held a variety of positions in homeownership, including operations manager and senior program officer. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience that greatly complements our homeownership team. Also, I am going to introduce Maggie Silva, Outreach and Education Coordinator. Maggie joined Maine State Housing Authority in November of 2024. She has 4 years of experience in the mortgage and banking industry and a bachelor's degree in elementary education from the University of Maine at Augusta. She has taught through grade school. Maggie is a lifelong learner and loves to bring that same thirst for knowledge to everyone she meets. She serves on the HomeWorks Board of Directors while only having been with MaineHousing for a few months. Maggie is eager to make a difference in the community and state through promoting home buyer education and connecting with various individuals involved in the home housing industry. Let's welcome Tina and Maggie. Go. So it's
I just want to make sure you can hear me because we're having issues with our video. Can you hear us?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay. And I'm trying to share my screen. And are you able to see it? And I'm going to try to get it to go from the beginning, but it seems like it doesn't want to. Can you see our screen?
We can, but it's got all the slides down the left side.
All right. Just give us one moment and I think we can get that to work. Here we go. All right. Well, we would certainly like to thank you for having us here today to go over MaineHousing's programs. Our goal today is to have you become familiar with MaineHousing's programs. I wanted to just start by explaining that MaineHousing is actually geared more towards being an investor. So we are an in-state entity with a public purpose, purchasing mortgages from our approved lenders. So when we see the loans, they are actually closed and they come to MaineHousing for review. And then we have our staff here go through all of the documentation to ensure that the loans comply with our program. We work with them to clear any outstanding conditions, and then we commit the loan for purchase. And then that loan becomes a part of our portfolio. So we're not the ones in the front of all of the customers. Certainly all of you are, as well as our lenders. But I just wanted to make sure people kind of understood that our role here at MaineHousing is more as an investor. We are also a quasi-state agency in that we are independently run and use tax-exempt mortgage revenue bond proceeds to finance eligible first-time homebuyer mortgages. And most of our program guidelines are actually come from the IRS. So in order for us to comply with our mortgage revenue bonds, we need to ensure that all of our items are meeting IRS guidelines. Hold on one moment. I just need to try to get to the next slide. And I don't know why there's such a delay this morning or now afternoon. All right. So our programs were very popular in 2024. As you all know, the interest rates on the market have gone up and they're kind of staying there. But in 2024, we were able to purchase 925 loans for $212.2 million. We did find that our volume as far as dollar amount went up because of the record home prices. as well as demand for lower interest rates. And we also had a demand for some of our down payment assistance programs, which we will go over this afternoon. And our goals are similar to last year, where we're trying to buy, again, 925 loans. And we have tried to do some enhancements to our program in 2024 to make our program easier to work with. So we're going to continue to do that in 2025. Just to give you a little bit of stats, in 2024, 77% of our portfolio were single family program loans or single family properties. We did 8% or 74 2 to 4 units. Those are the ones that people can buy, but they need to be using that as their principal residence for one of the units. We did 5% condos, which are 50 of them. And we did 60 single wide mobile homes and 36 double wide mobile homes. The averages that we've provided here are actually averages based upon our portfolio without mobile homes in it, because the mobile homes have a tendency to decrease our numbers. So we thought it would be interesting for you to see that our average loan amount without the mobile homes was $238,000 in 2024. Our average purchase price was $260,000. And then the average property age was 95 years. And we also did a new program called First Generation, which represented 21% of our portfolio in 2024 for 192 loans. And I already talked about the total that we did in 2024. So MaineHousing partners with several of our lenders. So we have about 35 lending partners statewide that deliver our first-time home buyer program. And as I said earlier, the lender is the one that does determine if the loan is eligible and works with the customer directly. But in 2024, our top producing lender was CMG Financial, which it was kind of interesting and fun because Bangor Savings Bank has been our top producing lender for many, many years, well over 10 years. So that they slid to the second number 2 position last year, but they are working very hard to try to become the number 1 lender again for this year. But our top 10 lenders are CMG Financial, Bangor Savings Bank, Fairway, Guild, Machias, Camden, Cousteau, Total Mortgage, DAS Acquisition, and North Point. But as I said, we do have about 35 lending partners that participate in our program. This gives you an idea of like where is our productivity in 2024. And so we had the bulk of our production was in Androscoggin County. And then we had Kennebec County, Penobscot County. Surprisingly, we even had 119 loans in Cumberland County. And we'll get into that a little bit further. But basically, MaineHousing has been able to increase our purchase price limits so that it can capture some of the pricing in the Cumberland County area. So that gives you just an idea of like in the state where's our productivity. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of using MaineHousing's program. So the primary benefit of using our program is that we do have a low fixed rate mortgage. We do offer 0 and 2-point options. We also offer several different types of down payment and closing cost assistance programs, and that includes Advantage, Multi-Unit Advantage, and our First Generation program. We'll get into this a little bit further as well, but we also offer a special military discount under our Salute Me program, which we'll touch base on in just a little bit. So currently I'm not sure if I put the slide in here next, but we tried to put in, we'll get to it, but we'll try to get into what our current interest rates are. So right now our interest rate is 5.95%. And when I get to that slide, I'll kind of step you through the different types of interest rates that we do offer based upon those various programs. So in order to be eligible for our program, they need to be a first-time home buyer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's limited to people who never have owned a home. There's no asset test in our program, and the borrower's income needs to be within our MaineHousing income limits, as well as our purchase price limits. And actually before the meeting started, Suzanne Gild and I were talking a little bit about how those limits are set. And we do have to follow the IRS guidelines when we determine purchase price and income limits. And this year, because some of our areas in the state of Maine are considered high cost areas, we were able to have some of our income limits bump up a little bit further, which we're pleased about, because that will help more people to be able to qualify for our program. And so here is our interest rates that I was talking about. So our regular program for a 30-year fixed rate is at 5.95%. If somebody wants to pay points, that brings it down to 5.45. And then our first gen rate is at 4.95. And then Salute Me, which is the veteran option I was talking about a little bit ago, is at 5.45. So that gives them a 0.5% reduction in the rate. And then we have some of our mobile home self-insured products that are 1% higher than the normal rate. So those rates are what are in effect right now for May for 2025. And then the next item is what is meant by a first-time home buyer. So in order to be a first-time home buyer, they cannot have an ownership interest in their principal residence for the last 3 years. So it truly is a two-part test, whether or not they owned and have occupied the property. And so, for example, if somebody owns a home but decides to move out and rent somewhere else, at the end of that 3-year period, they actually would be considered a first-time home buyer again. So as you all know, that's one of the primary purposes of our particular program, is to assist the first-time home buyers. I'm sure many of you who have been trying to work with buyers in order to purchase homes, your heart kind of goes out to first-time home buyers, because it's so difficult in order to qualify these days with the housing prices so high. The next test is that we need to have their income be within our income limits. And so this is a change that we did in 2024. We actually did some work with our attorneys and with our bond counsel to determine whether or not we had to include absolutely everybody in the household, right down to, as some of our conversations were, do we even need to include grandmama's income if she's living in the household? And we found that was not the case, that we are actually able to have only those who will be obligated on the note and mortgage be considered part of the household. So in order to determine income eligibility, it is anybody who's going to be obligated on the note and mortgage. And we have tried to the best of our abilities to mirror the secondary market as much as possible. So we've tried to establish our income on qualifying calculations as much as we possibly can. And that's something that the lender would certainly work with the borrowers on in order to determine whether or not they qualify. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So this is news fresh off the press. We literally just stated that effective today, these are our new income and purchase price limits. And so right now, this is based upon the city and county in which the home will be located in. So you would need to look up on our chart, which either some of the counties have high cost areas, which are the HMFA areas. So if your particular area, let's say it's Portland, they would fall under the Portland HMFA. Right now, those income limits are 129.8 for 1 to 2 person, or 149,270 for 3 or more. But those are our new income limits effective today. When we are determining, or the lender is determining income eligibility, they are looking at non-fluctuating income by projecting forward for 52 weeks, and fluctuating income, they go back and do a 52-week history. And so this is explained well for our lenders in our procedural guide. The next thing that they need to meet are our purchase price limits. And, you know, when you go back prior to COVID, MaineHousing's income limits are probably around $200,000. And so it's very odd for us to see our purchase price limits be in the $500,000 range. But in all counties in Maine, we do have purchase price limits that are ranging from $525,000 for a 1 unit. In some of the higher cost areas, we are allowed to have it be at $565,000. And then it goes up slightly based upon if someone's trying to buy a 2 unit, a 3 unit, or a 4 unit. And again, those are based upon the various counties or cities if you're looking at some of the HFMA areas. We also have a mobile home self-insured program, and those limits are slightly different. And so for a mobile home that is on its own land, we can do a purchase price of $250,000. And then for one on leased land, it can't go above $200,000. So those are our new purchase price limits that, again, were published today. We're going to talk about our various program options, or as it was termed in the advertisement for this webinar, as MaineHousing's inventory of products. So we're going to touch base upon a lot of our down payment assistance programs, and then some of our other specialized programs. But we're going to start with the Advantage program. And so for the Advantage program, the borrower can receive a $5,000 grant. And this can go towards their down payment and closing costs and their prepaid expenses. Maggie's going to get into this a little bit later, but in order to be eligible for the Advantage program, the borrowers do need to participate in a homebuyer education class that is approved by HomeWorks. And as I said, we'll get into more detail on that later on in this webinar. The beauty of our Advantage program is that it is truly a grant. And so the borrower is not going to have any sort of a second loan on the product. They are going to be given this $5,000 grant as a credit on their closing disclosure. And so it will be, there's not extra paperwork. It's really just a matter of having that be a line item on their application, and then on their closing document. So that makes it simple for us and for the lenders, and it doesn't add a lot of paperwork. But I can tell you that many of the people that are using our programs, it's been so difficult for people to be able to save for their down payment, that sometimes this Advantage product can make or break a deal. And so we definitely hear from those who participate in our program how beneficial it is to have both the low rate along with this down payment assistance. So we're always very pleased to see that we're able to offer both of those items. In order for the customer to get the Advantage product, they do need to have 1% of their own funds in the transaction, although it can also be a gift from either cash or equity from a relative if need be. But they do, that is one of the other requirements, is that they do need to have a 1% contribution in the transaction in order for them to be eligible for that program. Another product that we added, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, was our multi-unit advantage program. And one of the reasons why we wanted to add that in is because at that time, there were just so many investors that were just trying to come into the state of Maine and gobble up all of the inventory for multi-unit properties. And we just wanted to make sure that if there were first-time home buyers interested in purchasing and living in a 2-unit property, that they had a better chance of succeeding in utilizing that product. And so what we did is we took our regular advantage program of $5,000 and we decided that we would add an extra $3,000 for each additional unit that the customer would be purchasing. And so in this particular program, still need to have, the 1% of their own contribution into the transaction, but they can get $8,000 for a 2-unit property, $11,000 for a 3, and $14,000 for a 4. And Maggie will talk about this in a little bit, but in order to participate in that multi-unit advantage program, they need to take 2 classes. So they'll need to do the Homeworks Homebuyer Education class, as well as a landlord class, because they're going to be new to being a landlord and certainly need to know the ins and outs of having to manage a multi-unit property. On the next slide, we do show that MaineHousing on our public website does have several summary sheets that explain the various programs that we offer. And so this is the multi-unit advantage summary sheet, which gives a quick synopsis of what is required in order to be eligible for that particular product. And so if you're interested in that, certainly check out our website and look up for those summary sheets. I'm trying to decide, when did we start our first generation program? So I believe we started it in 2023. And the reason why we wanted to do a first generation program is we did learn that there's many people that have been in the state of Maine for many years that just have not been able to afford their own home, and also that it's been a generational issue where even their own within their own family, that there have not ever been somebody who's had home ownership. And so we wanted to find a way in order to assist in that area. And so we did all sorts of analysis, and we learned that we felt that the best way to assist in helping to bridge that gap was to not only provide them with a lower interest rate. So what we did is we decided in this program they would have a 1% lower rate than what our regular program offers, but they also would be able to have a $10,000 grant to help with the closing costs and down payment. So if this is for anybody who has never lived in a home that was owned by their biological parents or legal guardians during their lifetime, or at least one of the borrowers was in foster care at some point during their childhood. And so we have had quite a few people that have been eligible for the first gen program. And we have only gotten really great feedback on how this program has really helped to change the playing field for them and help them to be successful in getting their home for the very first time, and sometimes the very first time in their whole family. So for our program for first gen, it's the same income and purchase price limits that we have on our regular program. In this particular program, they do need to be a true first-time home buyer. So that means that they cannot have ever owned a home within their lifetime as well. And one of the common questions that we get is like, well, how do we prove all this? Because some of that could be very interesting trying to document this. But what we've done is we've added documentation to our affidavits where the customers will attest that they are eligible by signing our applicant certification along with our closing affidavit forms. These are a couple of the quotes that we got as far as feedback for our first gen program. I'll just take a moment to read them both. So it has allowed me to have stability for the first time in my life. My mom and I moved so much that each year we were living in a town, a different town or area. I did not want to move again. I wanted something that was 100% mine, and I did not want to have to locate because of a landlord wanted more money. The security of owning a home has made me feel safe and able to sleep. And I am a single woman who did all of this on my own. So that was one of the quotes. And then the next one was, without the first gen program, I would not have been able to afford the down payment and closing costs. Living alone and having to pay for all of the bills on one income made it hard to save money. 2 years ago, my rent was $900 a month. And then in July of 2023, my rent doubled to $1,800. The first gen program really made buying a home a reality. So this is a perfect example of where right now, not only have all of these home prices gone up, but all of the rental income or rental amounts have gone up as well. So boy, if somebody's going to have to pay $1,800, we would much rather see them put that towards a mortgage than their rent. For the Salute Me program, this is a program that offers a reduced interest rate. So we provide a 0.5% reduction in our normal rate for anybody who is a veteran. And so one of the misconceptions for this particular program is that it must be combined with VA mortgage insurance. And this does not have to be combined with VA mortgage insurance. If you have a client who wants to use a different type of insurer, it's not only isolated to the veterans, the VA. All right, what's on our next one here? I don't think I need to, I guess, but this particular program, so in addition to Salute Me, we also have another one called Salute Home Again. And with Salute Home Again, the borrower may have owned a home in the past, but now they are trying to either have sold a home or are going to sell a home by the time they buy this next home. And so we have waived our first-time home buyer requirement for that particular program. So it allows them to be a non-first-time home buyer, and it allows them to get that additional 0.5% reduction in the interest rate. And this is another one that has a summary sheet on it. So if that's something that you have a veteran that you might be working with, that you would like to have them consider the Salute Me program, I would encourage you to go and see the summary sheet on that. All right. Our next product is the Purchase Plus Improvement Program. The Purchase Plus Improvement Program allows customers to do repairs of up to $35,000 that they can combine with their first-time home buyer program here at MaineHousing. So they would be able to purchase the home at whatever the purchase price is, and then do up to $35,000 worth of repairs. And those items would both be gathered together in one mortgage. So they don't have to like first buy the house and then later on go and try to get a home equity loan. They could actually do it all at once. And as you saw from our very first slide, it stated that some of our housing stock is extremely old, and a lot of the properties that we're financing are older. And that again has to do with affordability. Sometimes you need to be able to find a home that has a reasonable price that the borrower can afford, and sometimes that will require them to have some repairs. So the Purchase Plus Improvement Program is an excellent product for them to be able to do both, buy the house and then do some additional repairs. So if you do have anyone interested in the purchase plus improvement option, then you would want to refer them to this summary sheet that again is on our public website. In order to use our program and not have 20% down, the borrowers will end up using mortgage insurance. And so MaineHousing does partner with various types of mortgage insurance. So where we're such a rural state, rural development is certainly a really good partner of ours. But they can utilize rural development, the VA, FHA, and then we do allow some PMI areas, some specific areas in Maine are allowed to use our private mortgage insurance products. One of the things that we did change in 2024 is we used to only be able to partner with Arch as a private mortgage insurer, but now we have opened that up to several different mortgage insurance companies. So in addition to Arch, we also are able to partner with Essent, Magic, National Mortgage Insurance, and Radian. I'm sure many of you are wondering, like, why on earth will MaineHousing only allow private mortgage insurance to be used in specific areas of the state? And these 6 areas are the areas in which they cannot get rural development as an insurer. And with our bond regulations or our bond ratings, right now, when they go to do our bond ratings, they actually will I would call give a haircut to any of our loans that are considered private mortgage insured. So that's why we have to limit it to these 6 specific areas. But we're hoping that that will change in the near future so that we can have additional areas be eligible for private mortgage insurance. For private mortgage insurance, they can do a loan to value of 97%. And typically that means that the maximum debt to income ratio needs to be 45 and a minimum credit score is 640. The other thing that we changed just recently is we were finding it very difficult to get insurance on condos for statewide. And so we decided that if for some reason one of our clients cannot get a condo that they're trying to purchase insured by a government insurer, that we would allow them to utilize PMI statewide. So that is a very recent change. All right. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail on our mobile home self-insured program, but I just wanted to be able to have it in here to state that if you do have somebody who's interested in financing a mobile home, we do offer a mobile home self-insured program, and that interest rate is 1% higher than our regular rate, excuse me. And but they do need to have at least a 5% down payment in order to participate in that program. On our public website, MaineHousing does have a quick guide that is really geared to give a real quick one-shot snapshot of what does it take in order to qualify for our various products. And so that's what's on your screen here. So if you feel that that would be something that would be helpful to you as a resource, then I would encourage you to go and get a copy of that. So the last item that I'm going to mention is MaineHousing does require or IRS requires that there be a recapture tax on our program. And I'm first going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to give you some reassurance of why not to worry about it. But first of all, the IRS requires that if a home is sold within the first 9 years of purchase, and the client makes a gain on the sale of the house, and their family income exceeds that which is listed on a recapture tax chart, that they might have to pay a recapture tax chart, and that's something that's paid to the IRS. If that happens, which is very rare, MaineHousing will reimburse the borrowers for any recapture tax that they had to pay. And the way that that happens is there's on our website, they can go to, I usually use the search engine. You go to the search engine and you just type in recapture tax, and it will bring up the chart that they need to look at to see whether or not their income was within the limit. And then if for some reason they have to pay that, then they submit a reimbursement request to us. So we've had this in place since 2013, and we've been able to have I think we've only reimbursed maybe 5 people within that whole time frame. But no matter what, I would want you to reassure anybody who's considering our program to not worry about the recapture tax, because even if they did have to pay it, we will reimburse them. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Maggie Silva.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So hi everybody, I'm Maggie. I'm the new Outreach and Education Coordinator for MaineHousing, as mentioned previously. Jessica Gurney held this position before me and gave me a lot of really great resources to use. So I've been able to adapt really quickly, which is awesome. But basically, MaineHousing partners with HomeWorks to sponsor homebuyer education classes in a bunch of different community agency program organizations. HomeWorks basically is the, I want to say, the biggest advocate for homebuyer education as far as we are concerned. They definitely provide the best resources for borrowers to be able to do homebuyer education without so much headache, and be able to get all of the information they need without having to struggle too much for it. HomeWorks is a nonprofit group as well that was founded in 1998, and they believe that the best place to start the home buying process is with homebuyer education. I know I'm biased because I work for MaineHousing and I'm secretary of the board of HomeWorks, but I would agree with them. I remember taking a homebuyer education class the first time that I bought my house, and it was immensely beneficial for sure. And the class covers more than just buying a house. It encompasses the whole kit and caboodle of everything. There's talk of credit scores, there's talk of understanding your credit score, how to build credit, budgeting, finding a realtor, finding a lender, and then the homeownership process afterwards. So it's not just meant to be about buying a house, it's meant to prepare the borrower for the homeownership process in general, and like from before to finish. And MaineHousing this year for 2025 has agreed to subsidize 117 homebuyer education classes and 20 landlord classes across the state. So that's really great. We also offer, or HomeWorks offers, and all of these organizations offer live and Zoom options for classes. We have gotten a lot of feedback from borrowers that feel as though they learn better in an in-person environment. So we are trying to offer more in-person classes, but we want to make sure that we encompass all of the different schedules that people have. I've heard a lot of stories from nurses and other workers that have sort of a different schedule, that these Zoom options work really, really well for them. So we want to make sure that we have everybody's schedule in mind when we schedule these classes. The in-person ones are usually, they range from an 8-hour class, so like a whole Saturday, to 3 nights. So that also encompasses different schedules as well for somebody that works during the day and would rather do something at night and can't do something on the weekends. And then the Zoom classes also are usually 3 nights or 2 4-hour classes, depending on the schedule of the educator that is presenting it. And then we have
The end?
That is the end, I think, unless you have any other information you'd like to add.
I don't.
Thank you, Maggie and Tina. I appreciate you giving those presentations. There's a lot of good content here for us all. With that, Suzanne is gonna take some questions for us.
Yeah, I've been answered them in the chat, but I had a question. This last thing you were just speaking about with the financial literacy, is that only for the first generation program? Or for
It's
other
only
programs?
required for the first generation program, but borrowers are more than welcome to utilize the resource if they're concerned or confused about any of their financials.
Excellent. Excellent. So fun fact about Suzanne, I used to work at MaineHousing many years ago, and I am completely impressed at all of the flexibility that these programs now have compared to when I was working for that organization many moons ago. Does anybody have any questions? You can put them in the chat. I was going to ask Tina, somebody did ask if we could maybe have copies of your slides to put up with our recording If that's, okay, great. So we'll get that for everyone and make that available. Does anybody have questions?
I would just say, Suzanne, there is a ton of flexibility in these programs. I think it's great, and it definitely will help a lot of the first-time home buyers.
A little shocking to
know.
see those $500,000 purchase price limits. Yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah. No, we're getting some people saying thank you. I don't see any questions here. Do you have any parting words for us, Tina?
I don't. I appreciate you allowing us to speak with you all this morning or this afternoon, whatever time of day it happens to be. But certainly if you have a first-time home buyer, we hope that you will think of our programs and be able to put into work our lower interest rate and our down payment assistance programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. How about Maggie? Maggie, do you have any closing remarks?
Even if your borrowers aren't first-time home buyers, the home buyer ed program is great for everybody, and I will say that until the cows come home. It's just, it's so helpful, and it's so worth it to take, even if it has information you already know.
I appreciate your presentations. Great information. And taking the time out of your day to be with us here at MAR. It's great. So it was interesting to know that Suzanne worked for you many moons ago, and that even makes it a little bit more, just a little bit more enticing. So yeah. I want to thank everyone for attending today, this Lunch and Learn. And I just want to say, stay tuned. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. It was a good day to be here on the screen with it raining outside. And, there'll be some more Lunch and Learns later on this summer. Reach out to MAR with any suggestions of content that you would like to learn about. Reach out to Suzanne or myself, and we'll be happy to take your suggestions. And I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.